Om Aganatimrandasyam Ganangana Salakya Chaksurun Minidam Yanatashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yanabhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dharati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamaram Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scham Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishakhan Vitam Stam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Shaksha Paraparo Tajmai Sri Guru Vedamam Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yara Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamaram Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sham Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishakhan Vitam Sham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jigapate Gopisha Gopika Kantara Radhikanta Namostate Jayatam Suruto Pango Mam Mandir Matirgati Matsavasha Param Bhoja Radhara Madharamor Sriman Rasa Rasaram Bibamsivara Karsan Sunevagaropish Gopinata Sri Esaram Divyad Bindaranya Kapadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Srimad Sanishto Sri Sri Radha Shidagovinada Prasadavi Sebam Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Tayacha Jagari Taya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gurudajita Mangalam Paridikaksho Mangarayatari Om Narayanaya Vidmihi Vasudevaya Dhimhi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Vidmihi Vishnu Paditi Dhimhi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahadakshmi Namastubhyam Sare Sare Hari Pre Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Adidatiram Tapta Kanchana Gaunagi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanusute Devi Pranamani Pari Priye Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Taramane Namaste Sarasati Devi Guruvani Pachari Nevasheswani Paripaskata Desatari Name Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. I'm going to raise the microphone a little bit here. Good morning, everybody. It's Transcendental Tuesday. I probably have announced this as being part 4 of the Atmarama verse before, but I recounted, and I might have been a little premature. I might have jumped the gun on those previous occasions. This, as far as I can determine, is actually part 4 of the Atmarama verse. And if I announced part 4 yesterday, I'm correcting myself today. It was part 3. Good morning, Janatarani. Janatarani got approved by her guru, Ridananda Maharaj, for second initiation. She came the other weekend and helped us dress the deities. So we're looking for her to step into a higher level of service here in Spanish Fork, Utah. Good morning to Janatarani, newly approved Brahman. Brett, twice he's been to India within the last 3 months, so he's got the dust, the holy dust. Neshamatish Tavado Karan. There's a verse in the second canto of the Bhagavatam that says if you haven't sprinkled the dust from the holy places of pilgrimage over your body in an attitude of humility, your body is like a dead body. Shashana. And that's not a risk for Brent. He's done it not once but twice in multiple places of pilgrimage within the last quarter of the year, within the last quarter. So good morning, Brent. Good morning, Jean. I don't think Jean's missed a class in two years. It's been at least 2 years since we started these sessions at the beginning of COVID. Bye, Bobby, my better half, as well as all the people that are live and who haven't commented yet. Thanks very much for joining us. Ram Kishore from Minneapolis hasn't jumped on yet, but we're looking forward to a visit from him a little bit later on this week, I believe, or beginning of next week, sometime around the 18th or so. He's coming out for a business conference, and he'll be visiting us in the evening. And just in anticipation of your visit, Ram Kishore, well, not really. We had our own reasons as well. Last week, the painters were here, did a lot of trim. The front stairs had become a bit chipped over the 21 years since we opened. And some of the trim around the second floor veranda had a few chips in it, and so we brought a crew of painters on board to touch everything up. So the front stairs are looking brand new, as they did at the opening in 2001. The upper deck trim is looking good. It's looking good. And almost as if on cue, we always have lots of tourists on the weekends, people coming and going on I-15. Many of them going to or from Yellowstone or the national parks in Utah. But yesterday was a Monday and we were flooded. We just kept running out of things in the buffet, cooking more, heating up more, bringing out, filling it up. 15 minutes later, empty, filling it up all day long, just running. That's what we like. That's what we expect on a Saturday, but now it's happening on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I can't believe the mercy. Devotees chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It's a prayer not for God to give them anything, but it's just a prayer, give me service, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for answering our prayer abundantly here in Utah. Part 4, we've entitled this The Four Kumaras, and you'll see why we've done that here in a moment. We had promised you yesterday to talk about impersonalists who graduated to the level of pure devotional service. The four Kumaras are the foremost names that come to mind. There are many, many instances of impersonalists. Some or other meeting pure devotees or in some way, shape, or form intersecting with the glories of the Lord, and then realizing that there's no real juice in a monistic impersonalistic conception of the Lord. The real juice is in stepping into the middle of your own eternal spiritual individuality and engaging in a reciprocal relationship with the Lord. That's where the real ocean of bliss is. The Lord is Sat Chidananda, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. And those who are monists, they get to taste a little bit of the bliss of eternity. After all, if you know that you existed before the creation of this universe and you continue to exist after the dissolution of this universe, that's a good basis for never losing your joy. That's a broad-based perspective that makes you pretty unshakable. It makes you pretty immune to the vicissitudes of material circumstances, to the betrayals, to the insults, to the downsides of this material existence. If you realize that God loved you so much, that He created you immortal, imperishable, indestructible, that Nahanyate hanyamane siriri, you are not slain when the body is slain. If you survive the ultimate catharsis, the ultimate tragedy of the death of this body, and if you go through your life in that full consciousness of yourself as an eternal living being, loved so much by God that He forged you invulnerable, indestructible, there's not much that can spoil your day. You're going to go through your day feeling really up with a smile on your face. Your friends, your family members are going to say, nothing perturbs him. Nothing perturbs him. They're like a rock. They've got that consciousness which is not disturbed. What is that verse? Apurya manamachadapracham shamudram apapashanti yadbad kamana sasantim apnavri nakamakipi. The last or second to last verse in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita describes that person who lives their life in full consciousness of themselves as spiritual entities, part and parcel of the Lord. It says they're conscious like an ocean, deep, vast, imperturbable. Although many rivers may run into the ocean, and imagine the Ganges River starts high up in the snowbanks of the Himalayas, travels downward, downward, downward. Sometimes it's half a mile or 3/4 of a mile wide. Can't imagine the body and the weight of the water. It's all going downhill at 1 or 2 degrees. It travels downhill, building momentum, force. Even up at the source of the Ganges, I've been to Badrinath and Rishikesh. That's up where the Ganges, up sort of in the direction where the Ganges begins. kind of near the beginning, relatively speaking, of the Ganges. And when you go into the Ganges, you take bath because it's very auspicious to dip into the waters of the Ganges. But it's very fast flowing in Rishikesh and Badrinath. There are little steps so that you can get your ankles or even to your thighs. But you don't want to go deeper than your thighs because the water has the potential to just take you away. So there are iron bars, there are iron stakes embedded in concrete by the side of the Ganges River. So you need to hold on to those, even when you're in your ankles or up to your knees. So you don't want to get your feet swept out from underneath you, or if you do, you hold on to those iron things so you don't get swept away. In fact, I remember in Australia, there was a nice boy who came to us during his senior year in high school. His name was Robert. Very handsome, good-looking boy, intelligent. He became a devotee, and he ended up with Guru Kripa's crew in Japan, collecting for the Vrindavan and Mayapur projects. They used to take breaks every once in a while. They'd work very hard, long days for weeks at a time. So they worked hard and they played hard. They would take breaks periodically for R&R in India. And I heard a story when we were in Australia that this young boy, Robert, while the crew, the Japanese crew, had gone to India and gone to Rishikesh to take a break from their collecting in Japan, they went in, a group of them, I don't know how many, maybe 10, into the Ganges near Lakshman Jula, the bridge of Lakshman there in Rishikesh, and they sported around and so on and so forth, and they're a little proud of their youth and their strength, so they may not have taken all the precautions that they should. And then someone noticed, where's Robert? He wasn't among them. They never saw him again. Unbeknownst to them, somehow during their sport in the swift-flowing river current, Robert had lost his footing and gone under. They found his body sometime later, a considerable distance downstream. He was such a nice boy. He was so blessed with good looks and connections and intelligence that, and then consider where he lost his life right there in the waters of the sacred Mother Ganges. And so Krishna, I believe, had some other mission that was more important, that was pressing. So Krishna took him away. In any case, that was my experience of the swiftness of the Ganges River. And to tell you the truth, during the narration of that story, I forgot what ebb and flow. I forgot what current took me. Oh yeah, right. We were talking about the imperturbability of pure devotees and referring to the verse in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where the depth of the devotees' attachment to Krishna is such that it's like ocean, it's oceanic. So imagine the Ganges dumping into the Bay of Bengal, into the Indian Ocean, after having descended for 1,500 miles. Imagine the force, the power, the weight, the quantity of water, which then spews into the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. And yet, in spite of that, the ocean itself is not riled up. It's not churned. The ocean is so deep and vast that the pouring of waters from various sources doesn't bring about a disturbance on the surface or in the depths of the ocean. So in the same way, those who are devotees, it's very difficult to disturb them because they're always conscious of themselves as eternal, spiritual living beings. And so when the impersonalist becomes advanced in the practice of their penances and austerities and studies, they start to associate, they start to get a full, palpable realization of themselves as eternal living beings. And with that comes a tremendous relief from pressure and stress and anxiety, suffering. They get a taste of the Ananda quality of the Lord. They get a taste of the bliss of the Lord. But it's only a taste. Lord Chaitanya said the taste that the impersonalist gets from rubbing up against the eternality of the Lord is like a drop compared to the ocean of bliss that one gets when one engages positively and committedly in the devotional service of the Lord. There are many instances of impersonalism. Impersonalism basically means passivity. It means withdrawal from personal interactions, from societal responsibility, from work itself. And it's a gateway. It can be a gateway. Those impersonalists who are not offensive to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who are open to hearing about the Lord and associating with devotees of the Lord, will inevitably elevate themselves, graduate themselves from the impersonal to the personal conception. As long as they don't get all puffed up and absorbed and swell-headed and taken with themselves. Look at me. I can do more austerities than most people. I know more of the Vedas than most people. If they're too much wrapped up in themselves, they begin to minimize the devotees and the devotional practices of bhakti. And then they are barred from entering into the bliss of the Lord's entourage. However, many impersonalists are without offense. Impersonalism is a bona fide ladder, rung on the ladder, back to home, back to Godhead. One purifies oneself through penances and austerities and study and continence, sexual continence, eating continence. One becomes purified. In that purified state, it's easy to catch up devotional service of the Lord. Arto jignashi artati ganica bharashavam. Chaturvida bhajatama jana shukita arto jignashi artati ganica bharashavam. 4 types of people who end up serving the Lord. 3 of them are more or less materially motivated. There's the distressed, there's the seeker of wealth, and there's the inquisitive. But then there's that one in knowledge. Knowledge begins to know I am not this body. Aham brahmasmi. That is the level of the monist. Many people, by their own efforts, by their own introspection, by their own analysis of the material world, with the help of scriptural authority, come to the conclusion that I am not material, I am not temporary, I am eternal. That clears them of many misconceptions, many impurities. It helps them to focus on the journey onward. And then, in that purified state, when they intersect a pure devotee of the Lord, when they intersect anything to do with the devotional service of the Lord, it automatically attracts them. The classic example of this is the 4 Kumaras. 4 Kumaras had not an ordinary birth. They were the mental sons of Lord Brahma. Just as Lord Brahma was not born in an ordinary way through the womb of any mother, but he appeared, he's called Atmabhu, self-born, self-manifested on the petals of the lotus flower without having been packed into the womb of a mother for 9 months. Similarly, Lord Brahma, being charged with creating and populating this universe, was intent on filling the universe with all the various 8,400,000 species of life. The mechanism by which this is done is that from Lord Brahma's mind, he creates Prajapatis. Prajapatis are the progenitors of mankind. They're human-like, but they may have certain features of the lower species. For instance, Garuda is human-like, but he has wings and he has a beak. There are Nagas, Takshaka, and others who are human-like, but they have the features of snakes. So the Prajapatis, being descended from Brahma, who himself is a direct manifestation of the Lord himself, are more not human-like, but the humans themselves are created in the image of God. So the Prajapatis have divine features, just like Krishna has features, just like Brahma has features. The Prajapatis have predominantly human-like features mixed in with some of the features of this subhuman species. Now, their empowered their DNA, RNA, such that they can produce thousands and thousands of offspring. And when they reproduce with their mates, the universe is, at least from a point of view of cosmic time, pretty much instantly populated. The idea of the gradual evolution of the species is bogus. You more or less have to have all the species appearing more or less at once, because they all counteract each other. They all create a balance without which there would be chaos out there, outside your window. So the Vedic version of creation is neither evolutionism nor is it creationism, but it's called emanationism or expansionism. The Lord creates Brahma, Brahma creates the Prajapatis, and the Prajapatis pretty much jump-start the process of populating the universe with their extraordinary procreative powers. Now, the Kumaras were created by Lord Brahma to be Prajapatis, to assist him in his focused meditation of populating the universe. This is the mission that Lord Brahma is given. And he doesn't want to dally. He doesn't want to straggle. He wants to get it done. Let's get her done is Lord Brahma's mood. So he produced all these Prajapatis. Among them were the 4 Kumaras. He said to his 4 mental sons, get married, produce lots of children, assist me in the mission that Krishna has given me. Now the 4 Kumaras didn't want to disobey the orders of their father, and they recognized the importance of what their father was doing, but for themselves they felt that they just wanted to focus on their spiritual practices. They did not want to get married, have children, to get entangled in family life. It is the entanglement in family life which most often drags the soul into material identification and brings about miseries in a life which otherwise needn't be miserable. And so the 4 Kumaras decided that they would rather bypass family life, but they didn't want to directly disobey the orders of their father, so they hit upon a stratagem so they could not exactly disobey their father, but at the same time not have to get married. Most of you are listening out there know what it was they did. It was quite clever. They arrested their development. They were great mystic yogis. And so what they did was they arrested their development. They remained as if they were 6 or 7 years old. They stunted their growth intentionally by their yogic mystic powers, such that they would never mature physically and consequently be able to procreate. They remained in the prepubescent stage. Don't you like that word? Prepubescent stage. And when Lord Brahma intimated what they were doing, he figured out what they were up to. They weren't growing. They weren't maturing. He got angry nevertheless. And then that's when Rudra came from between Lord Brahma's eyebrows. His anger manifested Rudra. He said, I created you kids to grow up, to mature, to get married, and help me populate this universe, but you're not with the program. And so then his anger created Rudra, which was very helpful. It's all a plan of the Lord. Rudra came out. You need Rudra. You need that passionate presence within the universe. And Rudra was banished to wherever people have clenched teeth, wherever the heart picks up, wherever blood pressure rises, wherever you have bloodshot eyes, whether you have curled lips, furrows in the brow, and clenched fists. That's where Rudra, those were the places that Rudra was given to live. And then ultimately, everything material has to experience destruction. Everything material, including the universe, has 6 phases. Janmadiyasya, Drishtadayasya, Nadmanamisha Padanam, Kalaneshwariyashram. The 6 phases of birth, growth, duration, reproduction, dwindling, and vanishing. There isn't anything material which is exempt from these. So there needs to be a personality in charge of vanishing. Um, at the end of the summer season, when all the fruits and all the vegetables have harvest, and you have the onset of fall, the Diwali, which is another name for a harvest festival, and everything's packed and stored for the winter, then you need that vanishing. You need to segue into that mood of vanishing, the onset of winter, all the greenery, all the beauty, all the fragrances vanish. And that's important because they need to rest. They need to kick back. They need to step back, take the winter season to regroup, recharge, so that then again in spring everything can burst forth abundantly once again. So Rudra was essential in order to bring about the vanishing of all the flora and fauna. But then, of course, you can't have spring without winter. So everything that happens is happening according to the will of the Lord. The Kumaras arrested their development, so powerful were they in terms of yogic focus. They remained 6-year-old boys, naked. They went here and there, traveling throughout the universe without a stitch of clothing on them. And you could get a misunderstanding of them. If you saw these 6-year-old boys, you might have minimized their knowledge, minimized their antiquity. You might have underestimated them. That's what happened when they came to the gates of Vaikuntha and they were stopped by Jai and Vijay. There was a bit of an altercation, the result of which is that Jai and Vijay were cursed, and they had to take births within the material world as demons. That's another story for another day. But the Kumaras were impersonalists initially, highly purified, highly knowledgeable, highly austere, versed in the Vedic literatures, purified from all material taints and contamination. So purified, in fact, they did not have any attraction for women, for children, for family, for material expansion. They were situated in impersonalism. One day, what happened was, as described in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tashyada vinda nayanasya parada vinda kinjaka misha Tulasi makaranda vayu antagatra sha bivarena chakara shaksham shankshama makshara jushama pichinta tanve. Somehow they're wafting in their direction, entering their nostrils, came the aroma of Tulasi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord. Somewhere in some corner of the universe, someone was offering Tulasi to the Lord, or offering prasadam, consecrating vegetarian food by offering it to the Lord with Tulasi. Prasadam is not prasadam unless it's offered with Tulasi. And there was a breeze, and then that breeze carried the aroma of Tulasi from the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord himself smells of musk and sandalwood and camphor. And so the aroma of the Tulasi was mixed with musk, sandalwood, and camphor, which comes from the lotus feet of the Lord. Then Vayu played his part. Vayu caused that aroma, that divine aroma, to be wafted. Antagata shabivarenam. It entered into the nostrils of the four Kumaras, and they never were the same again. It brought about a profound change in their consciousness. They recognized, they identified this aroma as non-mundane, having nothing to do with the material world. Their senses were so much under control that they were able to arrest their development, and they recognized with those purified senses that this was not a relapse. This divine, alluring, attractive aroma from the lotus feet of the Lord, the fact that they relished it did not mean that they were relapsing, that they were falling back into material sense gratification. No, it meant that they were elevating, that the Lord was giving them the chance to go to the next level. It appears from this narration that the Kumaras, as soon as they intersected with the features of the Lord and their senses, experienced the divine tastes and smells and sights and tactile experiences to do with the devotional service and the worship of the Lord, they felt a kind transcendental pleasure which was unfamiliar to them, that they'd never felt before. What happened was their impersonalistic conception, their monism, was defeated by the beautiful transcendental features of the Lord. And because of the fragrance carried by the air from his lotus feet, and because of that intoxicating aroma, their minds changed, and they were no longer interested in becoming one with the Lord. They thought it a wiser course of action to activate rather than to continue in passivity. They wanted to activate themselves and become servitors of the lotus feet of the Lord. Their conclusion was that the least servitor, the most humble, unassuming servitor of the Lord, is far better than the greatest impersonalist and the greatest monist. This is further described in the 25th verse in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavatam. I can't wait till we get to the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. It may be a while, because we've been 2 years, and we've only got to the 7th chapter of the 1st canto. But eventually, if I live long enough, we'll get to the 3rd canto. There's so many nectarine verses in the 3rd canto by both Uddhava as well as Kapila and Krishna himself and Lord Brahma. Well, this is one of them. You ready? Naikatmana me spriyanti kechan madpara seva beratam madiha ye nyonyata bhagava prashaja sabajata mama purushani. This is right from the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What a tradition, what a culture we have. There are any number of quotes from the Lord's pure devotees, like the Kumaras, like Lord Brahma, like Lord Shiva, like Prahlad Maharaj, but they're also interspersed in amongst the quotes of the pure devotees, direct quotes from the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he himself is extolling, praising and glorifying his devotees, and recommending above and beyond all other processes the practice of Bhakti Yoga. So the Lord says from his lotus mouth, Nevatkana me spriyati kachin. Kachin means oneness. Says a pure devotee who is attached to the activities of devotional service and always engaged in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. And you flip that over, and it means in the case of the Kumaras and many others, that those who are impersonalists give up their impersonalistic conception, being defeated by the superior allure of devotional service of the Lord. It says, those who are engaged in my lotus feet never, ever, ever, ever have any of them descended back down to monism. It says, such devotees who are unflinchingly engaged in my devotional service always, tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pridibhukam, satadam kirtiyantam yejanam, tesham yuktanam yogashema bahamiham. They always engaged amongst themselves in hearing and chanting about my glories. And as such, the devotees are factually eligible for liberation, because in the process of engaging their senses, their tongues in chanting, their ears in hearing, their hands in playing musical instruments and fingering their rosary beads, their nose in smelling tulsi, and their eyes and seeing the beautiful forms of the Lord, they are developing their spiritual bodies. In the ocean, as I mentioned yesterday, the monists, the impersonalists, are fond of comparing themselves to a drop of water. And their idea of liberation is that the drop, having been extracted from the ocean, will return to the ocean once again. The problem with that is that the drop can again be extracted. It's so small that when the sun beats on the surface of the ocean and the ocean heats up, the drops of water are evaporated. They are sucked up. They become clouds. The clouds travel hundreds of miles. They go over land. They go over mountains. And then due to climatic changes, there's rainfall. The drops fall on the tops of the mountains. They enter into rivers like the Ganges, and they travel in those rivers back to the ocean. So this is called coming and going. It's the fate of the monists. Their liberation is not permanent because they have not taken their forms. They've not engaged in devotional service. They've been passive. They've been internally focused. And they have not evolved their transcendental spiritual forms. Now, in the ocean, never will be extracted the shark, never will be extracted the whale, never be extracted the giant octopus, the manatees, because they have their forms. They live deep within the ocean. There's no question of them being extracted from the ocean. They have their full-fledged forms, but because the monists do not engage in devotional service, their spiritual senses do not mature, they never get out of that cycle of coming and going. There are 5 types of liberation. Saloka, Sarsi, Samika, Shorabapika. One of those types of liberation is to become one with the Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence which emanates from the body of the Lord. But that is not considered to be a bona fide platform of liberation, because being one with the effulgence from the Lord means that, again, you can fall down, and then again come, and then again fall down, and then again come. The other 4 types of liberation, specifically, to be promoted to the same planet as the Lord. Secondly, to associate personally with the Lord. Third, to achieve the same opulence as the Lord. And fourth, to attain the same bodily features as the Lord. Those are bona fide, eternally liberated situations. Why? Because in each and every case, it's predicated upon one having done devotional service to the point of having evolved one's full-fledged spiritual form. Now that form may be in the mode of santa, neutrality, it may be in the mode of servitorship, it may be in the mode of friendship, it may be in the mode of parentalness, maybe in a parental mode, or it may be in the mood of the gopis, the eternal milkmaidens of Vrindavan. But as far as those that 5th type of liberation of merging, becoming one with the Lord, devotees are not attracted. Not only are devotees not attracted, but there's a famous quote from Parvananda Saraswati, who is a follower of Lord Chaitanya. He said, not only are we devotees not attracted by passive monism, but that is hellish. The idea of Kaivalyam, becoming one with the Lord, is hellish. Kaivalyam narake tridasha purakasha pushpaya durtendira kalasharpa partalidam srayatam vishram pornim bidi mahendra shakitayate yatkuna nekataksha vaibhavatam shtam gurum eva shtumna. There are many so-called devotees or monists who think, who speculate, that it is only in the conditioned state, the state of illusion, that one engages in the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but that ultimately the Lord has no personality. So they say that since the ultimate reality is impersonal, then for here and now, while we have attachments and while we're tainted by the material atmosphere, we can imagine a personal form of the absolute truth for the time being and worship it temporarily, but as soon as one becomes purified and liberated, the worship stops. One goes beyond the worship and becomes one with the Lord. This is the theory put forward by the Mayavadi philosopher. It's not accepted by the devotees. It's anathema to the devotees, because the devotees are feeling so much greater pleasure, oceanic pleasure in serving the Lord than one could ever feel by imagining oneself to become one with the Lord. Ananda Maya Abhyasa, the greatest pleasure for the living being is to serve the Lord. The pleasure of those who serve the Lord is greater than the Lord's pleasure to receive that service. We've heard it said, it's better to give than to receive. So the Lord thinks the servants are better than him. Yat charana seva, yat padan cheva padma hritanam sadasakira manam nashiva roktami pamacha prakshala varti rambaranti. He tells the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, tells her that I have become so purified. I've become so purified that you, Lakshmi, have chosen me as your husband. You've chosen me as your husband because of my qualities. The qualities I have, I attribute to my having served the lotus feet of my devotees. What assets I have, what good qualities I have, the Lord himself is saying, came about as a result of my serving my devotees. The devotees serve the Lord. The Lord credits all of his good qualities. He credits the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, having chosen him above Shiva, above Brahma, Kuvera, Indra, and all the other potential suitors. Lakshmi chose to marry the Lord, and he gives that credit to his devotees. Isn't it any wonder then that the devotees are always devising newer and newer ways and means to serve the Lord, even in the midst of the greatest obstacles of material existence. And for his part, the Lord is always outdoing himself, trying to find ways and means to serve his devotees. Aham bhakta parera yashotanda shadabhira shiru bhaktir bhaktir. The Lord declares in the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, I have no independence. I have no independence. I am owned lock, stock, and barrel by no devotees. And then on the other side, the devotees say, I have no independence. I am a servant of the Lord. I am the Lord's animal. I've been bought and sold. I'm tethered in the Lord's backyard. I am at the Lord's disposal. Whatever it is the Lord wants me to do, I will do that. Throw into my path betrayals. Throw towards me backstabbers. Throw towards me those who are envious. Arrange the circumstances to be difficult and challenging and mountainous and unsurmountable. Doesn't matter. My movement, my thrust, my drive is always towards the service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nice enlivening session. At least I found it so. I hope that you don't disagree with me. You've got Kel sleeping there. Can you whisper anything to us, Rob, as a postscript to our discussion today? Okay, I guess we're being very quiet so that Rob will sleep.
Just Haribo.
Haribo. Anjali wishes me long life. She wishes that I would live long enough to usher you all into the 3rd canto. Probably take 10 years, so I would be 85 by the time we arrived at the initial verses of the 3rd canto. But Anjali, from your lips to God's ears. All right. She also echoes the statement of Paramananda Thakur by saying not only a devotee is not attracted to passive monism, but labels that as hellish life. Yes. Randy Gordon. Thanks for joining us this morning, Randy. Anjali says it's better to give than to receive. Yes. Anjali says the monists never get out of the cycle of coming and going. Their liberation is not considered actual liberation by the devotees of the Lord. Wow, Anjali is very prolific today. It says that the Kumaras, upon smelling the Tulasi mixed with camphor and musk from the lotus, they felt a kind of transcendental they never felt before. Their monism was defeated by the transcendental features of the Lord. Their conclusion was, the unassuming servant of the Lord is better than the biggest monism. Rakesh, thanks for joining us. Jay, Haribo, Govinda Dev, please accept my humble obeisances. Britta, good morning, Britta, up in Ogden. Vaibabi, Jean, Brent, Janatarni, thank you all for partnering with us this morning. Hit the likes buttons, hit the heart buttons. I'll pause for a few minutes. I'll do a prolonged recitation of the Maha Mantra. You're welcome to join me to finish up our session today, during which you're welcome to make as much noise as possible on Facebook. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.